It's time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
On a Friday, good to have you with us. A lot to do over the next 60 minutes. Be joined by our friend Tino Pattigno because it's a NASCAR Friday. Playoffs this weekend, Saturday night race in Bristol. The A's embark on their final homestand beginning on Friday night with a series against the Tigers. Then the Yankees are coming to town as well. So I figured it was time to get a little nostalgic. Jason Burke wrote a great article for SI.com. Bay Area covers the A's. We'll have that coming up as well a little later on in the show. All right. Sam Yarnell, Shohei Ohtani makes history. The only way baseball could lead on a football Friday is Shohei Ohtani. 50-50. He did it last night, yesterday afternoon, in Miami against the Marlins. I don't know what the announced attendance was. I'm sure there's going to be, years from now, 50,000 people saying they were at this game. But Ohtani goes 50-50, does it in the most unlikely way imaginable in a 6-for-6, 3-home-run game, which, by the way, could have very easily been a 4-home-run game for 60-60. His first at bat, I mean, he just missed hitting a home run. I mean, we all can say we witnessed, and I was at the Durango Sportsbook, the station's sportsbook here in Durango in Las Vegas yesterday. We could, those who watched that game yesterday could say they saw live possibly the greatest game ever played by a baseball player. That is saying a lot when you consider the history of this sport.
He is, I believe, the 7th player ever to have 10 total bases in the game. He is the first of those 7 players to do it without hitting 4 home runs. There was an interesting stat tweet that went out. There's no one who in their career has had all of the things that Shohei Ohtani did last night happen to them in a single game over the course of their career, right? So they never stole 2 bases in the same game and hit 3 home runs in the same game, or had 10 total bases in a different game. Shohei Ohtani is a unicorn.
By the way, here's the greatest. This is that first one where he literally missed a home run on the first at bat by like a good 1.5 feet, 2 feet.
And so 6-for-6, 3 homers, 10 ribbies, 2 stolen bases. It is the single best performance by an individual baseball player in Miami in baseball history. Think about that for a second. He doesn't even play there. No. And he just put on the best single game performance of any player in that city's baseball history. It's incredibly impressive, Jason. And it got me thinking because I saw immediately after it happened, there was an interesting discussion that opened up and kind of a crossing of realms between NBA Twitter and Major League Baseball Twitter.
Okay.
And there was this large argument that just like the NBA, Major League Baseball should only have one MVP. We shouldn't do this American League and National League MVP
We've
thing
talked
anymore.
about this. We've kind of toyed with this idea.
We have, and now I present it to you in full. If there's one MVP in Major League Baseball this year, who is it?
It's Ohtani. It's not even close. It's not even close.
I think I agree with you.
Did you think I was going to say somebody else? I think you asked the question, thinking I would somehow find an argument for Aaron Judge. Are you nuts? I mean, look at what this guy has done. Even though he doesn't play the field, which kind of drives me nuts. I mean, you know what? Before I go too far, the Dodgers call. I want people to see what and hear and sound what number 50 sounded like.
Triple for the cycle, homer for history. On a 1-2, Ohtani sends one in the air. The other way, back it goes, gone! One-of-a-kind player, one-of-a-kind season. Shohei Ohtani starts the 50-50 club.
Not gonna lie, sounded a little scripted. I'll give it like a B+. He let it breathe after that. Joe Davis did, but it sounded little scripted to me. A little scripted. But
they gotta let this guy pitch again. They gotta let this guy
I've got a
again.
theory. I'm so glad you bring this up. I have a theory. Okay. I don't know if I'm the only one who said this. Maybe I'm not breaking any new ground here. I think what allowed for 50-50 this year is two things. One, he doesn't have to play the field. Two, he doesn't have to pitch. That's honestly my feeling on him being able to accomplish this. I don't think it's possible. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he'll pitch next year and go 50-50 again, and I'll be an idiot and I'll be wrong. Which, if he did, would even be more amazing than this, if anything could possibly top this. But I think not having to pitch, not having to play the field makes this, I think it makes it more possible. I mean, there has to be a question if you're the Dodgers. I know he's a really good pitcher. Are you tempted to just not even have him pitch when you can get that kind of offensive production? Is there a temptation to say, look, man, we're paying all this money for you. If he gets hurt as a pitcher, you lose him as a hitter. I wonder if there's got to be a conversation that takes place between the Dodgers and Ohtani's camp about that.
But you know that if he gets hurt as a pitcher, as we're seeing right now, you don't lose him as a hitter. I think this is one of the things. You
have to have surgery or something like that, and it could affect his hitting.
This is what we're seeing right in front of our very eyes. He's playing this entire season rehabbing from Tommy John surgery. Like, he's hit 50 home runs rehabbing from elbow reconstruction surgery. That, in my opinion, is what could hinder him pitching down the road the most. And you're right in that the money there is 50-50 is probably worth $75 million a year. At the end of the day, it probably is. So if you're the Dodgers, financially, you can cut your losses. And when we talk about the value in Ohtani being within the confines of the roster and all that kind of thing, there are ways to work around it.
One last thing, and you talked to me about this. I just want to get to this because we only have a second.
Yes, it is important. It's an important
thing. The fan that got the baseball, and Sam told me this before the show, not giving the ball back. Yikes.
Well, we saw that video, Jason. It's going to be very easy for a third-party authentication service, of which there are many out there, to go out and authenticate this baseball. Shohei Ohtani told reporters after the game that before his at-bats, the umpires were changing out the baseball. So there's definitely some sort of significant marking on there. It's the smartest thing to do to get the most money, and good for that fan for knowing that.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with that at all. Fan wants to hang on to the baseball. Dodgers probably offered him, a couple of bats, autographs, things like that. Not enough. I'm keeping the baseball if I catch it.
It's a lottery ticket.
Absolutely. We're coming back. There was a Thursday night NFL game. We'll get to it next. Coming up in 10 minutes, 2 games each from Sam and I that intrigue us most when we talk about the rest of the Week 3 NFL slate. That's coming up. In 20, Jason Burke, SI.com and Sportsnaut, covers the Oakland A's on their final homestand. We'll get some thoughts with him on that. And is there any hope the A's can remain in Oakland? Got to always ask that question as well. But we focus on the NFL. Sam Yarnell, Thursday night NFL recap. Hope you tailed Jason Page last night. What did we say on the show yesterday? Take the under. Take the Jets. Take the Jets, even though I wasn't crazy about it, minus the 6.5. And we told you, no touchdown for the Patriots. Bang! In the words of Mike Breen. 4 for 4. Hope you tailed us on that. If you didn't, shame on you. Sam, the Jets were impressive. I mean, there's no getting around it. And I said yesterday, we're getting to that portion where the Patriots are going to kind of start to find out what they are. But look, this is as much about what the Jets were doing as what the Patriots were unable to do in this game. The Jets defense, we know it's going to be really good. And you know who one of the biggest losers was in last night's game? Hassan Reddick. I mean, through 3 games, other than that first game, obviously, which was kind of a blip on the radar, I think, starting week 1 in Santa Clara against the Niners, Jets defense has proven it is going to be stout. It is going to be good. Whether Hassan Reddick is there or not, as long as they stay healthy, the Jets defensively are going to keep that team in games. They're going to be far more engaged, knowing that they've got some help on the offensive side of the ball because it isn't Zach Wilson and it is Aaron Rodgers. And if you're Hassan Reddick right now, I think your leverage is less and less every day. Put that aside. Loved what I saw out of Aaron Rodgers last night. Very strong performance for the Jets.
The Jets defense looked really good in that game yesterday, but we did, week 3 is that threshold, I guess, Jason, for the old adage that you and I use on the show. Bad teams, I guess they know they're bad now because the Patriots played like they played Carolina Panthers football in that game yesterday. I'm just put frankly, they played Carolina Panthers football. It was not good. Quite frankly, this is the wildest thing to me. The Patriots had every opportunity to beat the Jets in this game, and they simply beat themselves. Jacoby Brissett taking meaningless sacks after having 4.5 seconds in the pocket to try and make a decision or get rid of the ball, and he's just eating it. That happened at least 3 times. Those were 3 of his 7 sacks on the night because the offensive line for the Patriots just could not block that defensive front for the Jets, who we know aren't world beaters, right? We saw in the San Francisco game and the Tennessee game, San Francisco's got a good offensive line. Tennessee, not so much. So it speaks to the Patriots' just inability to block. And I think that was my main reaction, Jason, early in that game yesterday, is these Patriots are so much different than Patriots that we're used to seeing because they're not man-eaters up front. They just don't have those same big bodies that we're used to seeing, and they don't have that trench dominance that's kept them afloat since the end of Tom Brady. On the Jets side, listen, they played a sloppy game, over 100 penalty yards. You cannot do that and expect to play consistent winning football. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think the game was called very cleanly. 70 penalty yards on the Patriots. They were very quick to throw the flag. Now, the thing that everyone wanted to talk about, that awkward hug between Saleh and Rodgers after the QB sneak. Jason,
we're looking at it now.
Do you think that Robert Saleh still has a grasp on this team? Do you really? Is that something you believe?
As long as they're winning, I think the answer is yes. And you can read Rodgers' lips. I don't think there's any crazy conspiracy here in what was said after the game. Here's Rodgers post-game, asked by, I believe, my buddy Dan Leberfeld from Jets Confidential in SiriusXM NFL Radio, who I used to work with. I think it was Dan Leberfeld asking the question. Listen closely.
Awkward exchange with you and Robert. You appeared to push him away.
No, it was not anything awkward at all.
You appeared to push him away. Then when he went to hug you, what happened?
I didn't know. He's not a big hugger, usually, so I didn't know he was going for the hug. He likes to do the 2-hand chest push as well. So, but he talks a lot about 2-score leads. So I just kind of gave him a push and said 2-score lead. That's what happened.
That's exactly what it looked like. If you read his lips, that's exactly what he says. He pushes him back and says 2-score lead. So it's hard to have a problem with it when the lip reading matches up with what was kind of happening there. Do I think Aaron Rodgers, if Aaron Rodgers wanted to go up to Robert Saleh and give him a noogie, he probably could. It doesn't really, does Robert Saleh have any real control of Aaron Rodgers? No, absolutely not. Is Robert Saleh probably the coach that Aaron Rodgers has least respected in his career? Probably the answer is yes. But as long as they're winning football games, none of that is going to matter at the end of the day.
I hope Aaron Rodgers lost more respect for Robert Saleh after that interaction then, because if that is in fact what he said, and again, I'm not going to choose to believe anything because Aaron Rodgers demonstrated past of telling the truth, and the internet's demonstrated past of telling the truth. So I'm not choosing to believe anything. Here's the thing I will say, though. If that is the interaction that happened, Robert Saleh, famously a defensive coach who had a lot of success with defense and built his team around their defense, on the following defensive drive, gave up a field goal, and then Aaron Rodgers came back out and led a drive that led to a missed field goal into the end of half. So the 2-score lead thing doesn't really seem to matter to me. And if it mattered to Robert Saleh, he probably would have worked harder to protect it against a Patriots offense that looked anemic the entire rest of the game, except for the drive after that happened.
Again, I'm not going to make too much of it.
That seat, Jason, seat right this second has to be.
I don't think it's hot.
To be hotter than it's ever.
They're not going to fire him mid-season. They're not going to fire
hotter than it's been in his tenure.
Even if they did get off to a slow start, they're not going to fire the guy mid-season. That's not something the Jets are want to do. So I don't think it's a hot seat. I think after the season, if the Jets underperform, then we could be talking about it. But here's the reality: the Jets are 2-1 through their first 3 games. They've got the Broncos next. Win. In Minnesota against the Vikings will be a tough game, and then you get your first real big test at home against the Bills, where we could start to try and separate, who is who in this AFC East. So let's relax. I'll use Aaron Rodgers' words: RELAX. Relax. We see them playing better week over week over week. I still don't think this Jets team has even reached its full potential yet. We got to talk week 3 in the NFL. The games Sam and I like most. We'll get to them next. Welcome back to this Friday edition of the show. Coming up in 10 minutes, Jason Burke covers the Oakland A's. SI.com, Sportsnaut as well. Get his thoughts on the final homestand for the A's and what happens next. Any chance for the team to stay in Oakland, come back to Oakland, expansion, who knows? Jason Burke will join us and we'll talk with him. But Sam Yarnell, week 3 in the NFL, the games that have captivated us, that have us talking. There's a lot to pick from this week, honestly. There's 4 or 5 that I could have put in this category. But for the sake of time, for the sake of brevity, not our forte, we present to you the 2 games that we both are most intrigued by here in week 3 in the NFL. I'll go first. Eagles-Saints. I mean, look, the Eagles coming off a horrendous loss on Monday night, a game in which everybody kind of thought, even though it was close, they would figure out a way to close it out. Continued issues closing out football games. The early decision in the game to not go for a touchdown, or rather to go for the touchdown and not take the 3 points. Nick Sirianni obviously coming under fire. You talk about guys on a hot seat. We were talking about it with Robert Saleh. Nick Sirianni certainly fits that category. And the Saints, they're going to get tested here. On the road last week against the Cowboys, we saw what they did. Week 1, not a surprise, clubbing baby seals against the Panthers. How do they fare against an Eagles team that is going to come out probably with their hair on fire in this game? Saints are at home, by the way. I do like them. The other game of note to me, Ravens-Cowboys. Both teams coming off bad losses. Cowboys at home, obviously, not a performance they would want to obviously ever repeat. And the Ravens losing that game last week at home against the Raiders in the fashion in which they did. Those are the 2 games that I look at, Sam, and say, we're going to learn a lot, even though it's only week 3, and we don't like to go too crazy with hyperbole. I think I think you're going to learn a lot about these 4 teams here in week 3.
100%, Jason. I'm with you. And I'll just say with regard to that Ravens-Cowboys game, since it's not in my Page versus the Prince picks this week, I'll give it out right now. I love the Birds in that one. I think the Ravens go into Jerry World and beat up on the Dallas Cowboys. I think those are going to be 2 great games, Jason, and you're right. You know, the NFL did a really good job with this week 3, and they finally went back to the good schedule. I think we've got... It's 6 morning games and 5 afternoon games.
Last week it was
something
10.
like that.
Last week there were 10 games that started at 10 a.m. Pacific. I'm like,
and it was,
oh my God.
I'm sure it was great for some of the casual viewers out there, but for people like you and I who have to do our job and follow every single one of those games, that 10-game 1 o'clock window was awful. I hope they never do it again. All right. Let's get to my 2.
You all right? Hold on, everybody. Let's hold on. Let's take a pause. Let's call out the trainer.
I was doing my Cowboys impression.
Tino
early.
Pattigno is warming. Hold on. Tino Pattigno warming up in the bullpen. Tino Pattigno is warming up in the pen. We're getting the righty ready just in case.
He gets all hot. I need a break next segment.
He'll get all the warm up time he needs. All right.
My first game. San Francisco, LA in SoFi Stadium. Why? Who's going to play in this game? Christian McCaffrey, IR. Deebo Samuel, doubtful. News today, George Kittle left practice yesterday. He's now questionable. Travarius Ward, their starting defensive back, is out for this one as well. And Nick Bosa probably not going to play. So who is going to play for San Francisco? Well, who's going to play for LA? Cooper Kupp, he's injured. Puka Nacua, he's on IR. The list goes on and on. Yeah. I'm just excited to see the practice squads that we'll see active in this game. So at the end of the day, with the bearing that this has on that division, it is so funny to me that every key player for both teams is on the injury report leading into this game, especially for the Rams, who are 0-2 and seem to be the darling of the sports betting world before the season started. Everyone wanted to bet them to win the NFC West. I'll say after they went 0-2, I put a ticket on them to win the NFC West at 20-1. And the Niners 1-1, obviously trying to rebound after that wacky loss last week, and we'll see if Brock Purdy can actually perform without having now it looks like 3 all-pros in that starting offense. I'm very intrigued by this Niners-Rams game. And the other one, Jason, this game's got so much fun written all over it. Lions Cardinals. Now, if you would have told me 2 weeks before the season started that I was going to be most excited week 3 to watch a Lions Cardinals game, there's a good chance I would have hit you. But the fact of the matter is, both of these offenses have proven to be incredibly dynamic, and the explosive rate with both of them is off the charts. So I'm excited to see a lot of offense in this game, Jason. I think Jared Goff is going to be throwing the ball around the yard. An indoor game, we talk about it so often. He's an indoor cat. Even though he's on the road, he still doesn't have to deal with the elements down there in Arizona, that beautiful indoor stadium that they've got. And Kyler Murray looked really good last week. Obviously, fantasy owners are all too familiar with that, but Marvin Harrison Jr. had the coming out party, and I expect to see that continue here this week. Same thing goes with Amon-Ra St. Brown on the other side. Quiet week 1, got loud in week 2. I think it continues here into week 3. So Lions, Cardinals, and Niners, Rams, those are 2, Jason, that I will be locked in for all day on Sunday.
Sam, I'll give you one that I like as well. I didn't want to add a third game, but I will add a third game just because we got like a 90 seconds here. Because of my Herm Edwards like clock management. I'll give you Vikings Texans. Look at the way Houston's played over their first 2 games. Obviously, we know what Sam Darnold and the Vikings have been able to do. The Vikings, by the way, plus 2.5 at home. Anybody who knows anything about Jason Page knows I love me some home dogs. Little foreshadowing for Page versus the Prince. But I think that one's got banger written all over it as well.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you, Jason, and quite frankly, I'd probably take the other side in the Houston Texans. But listen, the Vikings have been they've been truly remarkable this year. I don't think any of us expected them to put up, regardless of who they were playing, 28 points in week 1. Sam Darnold came out throwing like a gunslinger, like he had been there for months and months when he only got the job, 3 weeks before? I like the Vikings this year. They're fun. They could make the playoffs. It would be a fun story.
We're going to get Sam a drink of water during the break. Either that or we're going to have to call him for a reliever. He's literally choking. Not like choking as in not coming up clutch.
I was just doing my Dallas impression.
All right, okay. We're coming back. Jason Burke on the Oakland A's. We're going to reminisce next. All right, let's continue with this Friday edition of the show. Coming up in 10 minutes, it'll be Tino Pattigno talking NASCAR, SiriusXM NASCAR Radio Insider. But I came across a story yesterday while I was watching the Yankees lose, watching Shohei Ohtani hit his 49th and 50th home runs. I came across a great article from Jason Burke, who joins us on the show. He's an MLB columnist with Sportsnaut. He wrote this piece for SI, does some work for them as well. Jason, I have to say it kind of hit me, and it's hit me hard because I've spent more than a few days inside that Oakland Coliseum. and for the reality of it all to be hitting right now, that this is it. This is the end. This is the final run for this team in Oakland. Has it set in for you? Because it felt like from what I read it has. Or is there still some denial that, no, somehow this is going to work out? There's going to be a last-second reprieve. The governor's going to call and the death penalty is not going to get instituted, and we're going to get to stay.
It's definitely setting in a little bit more. I've been able to, cover the team most of the season and been fine. As of the beginning of September, it really started to sink in. And like even in the clubhouse, guys were talking about it a little bit more. And so it's set in a lot more for the residents and people that grew up as A's fans as well this last couple of weeks here. And, as we approach the last homestand or, proposed last homestand for the A's,
you just did it. Hold on. You just did it. You just said proposed last home. So you still believe there's a chance.
No, here's the thing. Until anything's final, there's always a chance. It's one of those weird things where you don't know. I don't want it to be true. So therefore, until it is true, it's not true. You know how that works? It's a great form of denial. And I think that a lot of A's fans are like that. But, as a writer, you have to kind of be objective and also tell the truth. And so that's what I've been trying to do, is tell the story from a fan standpoint, but also being objective. And I mean, until the money is laid out in Vegas, and shovels are in the ground and all that stuff, but until they show the financials, there's a lot of different ways this story could go. It might not be Oakland. It probably won't be Oakland, but I don't know where it ends. And, until there is a definitive end, you want to hope.
What is the story of the Oakland A's at the end of all of this? How do you sum it up? I mean, look, we got 7 minutes. It's the way TV works. I mean, I can do, not for nothing, I could do 3 segments on this.
Yeah.
But for the sake of brevity, and given the fact that there's other things we obviously got to talk about, try and give me some sense for, how you sum up this A's franchise in its Oakland version.
I mean, for me, the A's are all about the fans that have basically built up the brand of the A's themselves. Sure, they have the green and gold, the Kelly green jerseys, which are some of the best in baseball, and Moneyball and all that stuff. But I mean, you could do that with any franchise. What makes the A's special is the people that come and watch this team play baseball. You have a lot of opposing teams that will complain about the noise that they hear when watching an A's game because of the drummers in left or right field, depending on which set you're getting that day. And I've talked to a bunch of opposing players just about the noise that the Coliseum generates, even when there's only 10,000 fans. They're like, no, they're comparable to a ballpark anywhere else in the country at like 20, maybe even 25,000. When the A's have 25,000 people there, it feels like a playoff atmosphere, which is, a regular night for most baseball teams. So it's the fans that make that place special. Sure, it's dilapidated. It hasn't seen a lot of care in recent years, but that's not the fans' fault. That's ownership and all of that stuff. So it's been a journey.
Was there ever a time where John Fisher and Dave Kaval cared about how this all mattered and how this all impacted the fans, or was it always a situation where they were working towards a solution that had them leaving the Bay Area for greener pastures?
It felt like for a little bit there that that would be the case. I wasn't covering the team at that point, so I didn't have those one-on-one discussions. It's all what I've read. Mm-hmm. But it felt like with the Rooted in Oakland platform and all that stuff, and it was going to happen. And then with COVID and everything, I think the just costs got out of hand, and the income wasn't there from the team, because there was no fans and all that stuff. So just the money got messed up with COVID and all that stuff, and then they just looked for whatever deal would work best for them, and without putting any extra money into it. And in the process, they sold off all of the best players on the team and then doubled season ticket prices. So it was a real big not so nice thing to do for the fans that have been, hoping for a new place to play for so long.
Jason, I got about 90 seconds here. Give me a sense for what you think this final homestand will feel like, will be like. Is there going to be a lot of fans there?
I mean, I assume so. The first series is against the Yankees, so regardless of whether or not A's fans show up, I assume the Yankees fans will be coming to see their team in their last games at the Coliseum, and then the final homestand. The last game is a sellout. You don't have Mount Davis open, which would be another like 8,000 seats or so. But there's going to be 40,000 plus. Yeah, it's gonna be a packed house at least for the last game. I'm assuming it'll be about halfway packed for the Tuesday and Wednesday game before that. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, no, it's going to be a lot more crowded than it has been in the entire season.
Yeah, that goes without saying. Well, look, I feel for Ace fans because I enjoyed a lot of games in that ballpark. They are loyal. They are loud. They are into it. A lot of great memories of A's baseball. And like you said, who knows? Maybe this thing turns out different. None of us really know. Jason, I really appreciate it. Check out his article. It's great over on SI.com, and we'll link to it as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We're coming back with more Sports Wrap. Tino Pattigno is next. We keep the conversation going on this Friday edition of Sports Wrap. Typically something to consider. But today, no. We got Tino Pattigno here, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go. Let's talk some NASCAR. Playoffs in full swing. Watkins Glen last week, Bristol in the night race on a Saturday this week, which is always good fun. Before we get into this week's race and who you like and why and all of that good stuff, let's recap a little bit of what happened at Watkins Glen. You were there. There were wrecks early, some prominent names, Ryan Blaney, Denny Hamlin, in some trouble there. William Byron finished way back. Give me some sense for what took place at Watkins Glen and how it impacts where we are right now. Obviously, Chris Buescher, the winner, and Gisbergen was finished in second. You go from there. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that I saw from Watkins Glen was the fact that it was a Watkins Glen race in the playoffs. Everyone was excited about it. This is normally one of the best, if not the best, road course on the entire NASCAR schedule because it only 7 turns, fast passing, everything happens there. And we did see a great race, but the playoff drivers did not come out ready to win this race. And I can't necessarily blame them because stats, data, analytics, research, crew chiefs, strategy, it all came into play with trying to get the most playoff points. But if you're racing in a playoff race, and I tell all my buddies who don't watch NASCAR to tune in to the Watkins Glen race because I'm super excited about it, but these playoff drivers are not stepping up, and at the end, there was almost no playoff drivers inside the top 10 trying to go out and get the win. The reason is they flipped the stages. Like I said, they wanted to go out and stay out when other drivers would pit to make sure they got the most stage points, which are in the end playoff points possible. And that's all great and everything, but for this race to not necessarily have the playoff drivers leading the field like they are capable of in a playoff race was a little disappointing to see from this road course here. It was a great race, like you said. Last lap pass there for Chris Buescher to get the win. He was 30-1 to do so earlier last week, and we mentioned that on the show as well. But it was just a little bit tough there.
All right, so where are we standings-wise? What's the biggest surprise to you going into this week in terms of where these drivers are right now?
It's got to be Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin -6 from the cut line right now in 13th. This is an elimination race going to the Bristol night race. It is one of the hardest races to win, first of all, but also the fact that it's the last race in the first round of the NASCAR playoffs. We'll see 4 drivers get eliminated. Right now, Harrison Burton's -20. All due respect to him, I don't think he's going to be moving on from this round. But then we have Martin Truex Jr., Brad Keselowski, Denny Hamlin, Ty Gibbs, and Chase Briscoe. Briscoe and Gibbs are +6, sitting in 12th and 11th in the current playoff standings. Like I said, only out of those drivers, 4 will be eliminated. So I think this is really a toss-up in this one. Denny Hamlin, he'll be going for his 3rd straight win at Bristol. I think the odds are favoring him here. He's going to be the favorite heading into this race. But the way they've kind of attacked the playoffs is the opposite. They haven't attacked it at all. They went into Atlanta kind of just wanting to finish, got into a wreck there, got into trouble at Watkins Glen, and now to see the championship favorite all year, aside from Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin, be -6, he may have to go out and win this race. But Jason, the crazy part is, so does Truex, so does Keselowski, so does Gibbs. These are all drivers that 3 out of the 4 of them race for the same team.
If I say to you right now, I think Joey Logano's in the best position, even though he's in 3rd right now. How would you respond to that?
I'd say you're right. Joey Logano for sure. He already is locked into the next round with the win from Atlanta, and it is an even year. Joey Logano on even years since 2014 has made the championship 4. So, I mean, hey, right now, all things point to Joey. I actually talked to him when I was at Watkins Glen. I asked him about that. Even years, Joey, what is it? What makes this team special on those years? And he didn't have an answer for me. He just kind of laughed and said, well, it has been, what it was. He's happy to be in the even year right now. For the odd years, he does say that he does try, although it may not look like it in the standings.
All right, so talk about, from a betting standpoint, Denny Hamlin the favorite at 5-1, Kyle Larson 6.5-1, Christopher Bell at 7-1, Ty Gibbs at 1,000, and then Chris Buescher at 1,200. Give me a sense for where you are right now when you handicap this race.
Well, I mentioned Denny Hamlin earlier. He's going to be going for his 3rd straight at Bristol in terms of winning this race outright. The thing that scares me is not only that, but the fact that they haven't been aggressive all playoffs long. This, to me, could be the script. It could be Denny Hamlin going out and trying to then, get the momentum back because he won that race after starting below the cut line heading into this week. But at the same time, Martin Truex Jr.'s -14. Ty Gibbs, like I said, only +6. Now, if Denny Hamlin is to win this race, that would bump Ty Gibbs or Chase Briscoe out of the playoffs. So to me, in understanding that 3 out of those 4 Joe Gibbs Racing drivers, and Gibbs, Truex, and Hamlin, need to potentially win this race. They don't necessarily have to win right now because a driver could, have an accident, wreck out, and then points could differ. But right now, where they stand, that would be the easiest way to advance, is to control your own destiny and win. Well, we also include Christopher Bell in this Joe Gibbs Racing conversation. And to go full circle here, this is why my favorite play out of the whole week is for a Joe Gibbs Racing driver to win at +125. It's fair value considering who we have on the board. Now, Denny is the favorite at +400. We see Bell at +650, and Gibbs, like you mentioned, at +800. Truex +1200. A lot of great value for all those guys, but if I want to clump them together into a manufacturer or team race winning bet there, it would be +125. We also need to keep an eye on Kyle Larson, +575. He's always finished inside the top 5 at Bristol in the last few races here. Ryan Blaney, great value, 18-1. And how about Josh Berry, 35-1, if we continue to see these crazy winners that are coming from outside the playoffs continuing on.
That is Tino Pattigno. You can catch him SiriusXM NASCAR Radio, providing betting insights there as well as here on SportsWrap. Thank you, my friend. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you. Let's go night racing from Bristol.
We're coming back with more SportsWrap odds and ends. Page versus the Prince next. All right, getting set to put the wraps on this baby. SportsWrap weekends, by the way. If you miss anything from the week, maybe it's on this affiliate that you're watching us on. Maybe it's on here. But if it's not, got to look for it. SportsWrap weekends. Call your station. Say, I want SportsWrap weekends. It's a 30-minute sort of recap of the best of what we talked about during the week. SportsWrap with Jason Page podcast available on Spotify, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, and a whole bunch more. Go and subscribe, like, comment, recommend it to a friend. You could do all of those things, and we would be very grateful. Without any further delay, Sam Yarnell.
It's Friday, and that means it's time for the weekly face-off for sports betting bragging rights. It's Page versus the Prince on the Sports Wrap.
Thank you, Chad Erickson. Let's go, Sam Yarnell. 6-2 over the first 2 weeks for the Prince of Picks. A pedestrian 4-4 for yours truly. It's the tortoise and the hare. Slow and steady wins the race. Stick with me. You won't be disappointed. And by the way, I've been killing it on the primetime games so far with the exception of the Jets in week 1. I've been really good. All right, Sam Yarnell, you're up first this week.
Let me just say this for the Prince's people out there. It is a wonderful feeling going into this week at 6-2, like Jason mentioned, knowing that we could go completely cold this week. 0 for 4, and oh my gosh, we're still right there at 500.
Don't manifest that. Don't manifest that.
I'm not. I'm trying not to. I'm knocking on wood right here. Yeah. But listen, at the end of the day, the Prince's people got to be happy. And catch me over on Twitter at Sam_Yarnell. I give out bonus plays there all the time because we can't be on the air all the time, and I'm always thinking of plays for the Prince's people. So that's where we'll be. That's where we're at. We're playing with house money this week, and we're starting where we started last segment, Jason. SoFi Stadium, the Niners and the Rams. I mentioned it last segment. Who's playing in this game? Everybody's injured on both sides of the ball for the Niners, but on the offensive side of the ball for the Rams, Matthew Stafford is going to be throwing to nobody and their cousin this weekend at home. So give me the under. 43.5 is the number that I got. I see this game finishing 17-14, 21-10, something like that. I don't think this game gets anywhere close to 40, so I'll take the under 43.5. If you want to alt that number down, I don't hate it. I do think that this is going to end up being a real rock fight, especially when you look at what Jordan Mason's done in his time filling in for Christian McCaffrey. So under 43.5 is my first play in Niners Rams. My second play, quite the contrary. We'll go to Arizona, Detroit and Arizona playing out there in Phoenix, or I guess west of Phoenix this weekend. This game's going to have points all over it. We saw how dynamic the Arizona Cardinals offense was last weekend. They're only growing into their body at this point. They're finding their identity as the season goes on. The Detroit Lions offense is one that is still trying to get back to what they were last year, right? Sam Laporta, people aren't talking about this enough, has been a letdown through the first 2 weeks of the season. So I'm looking for him to bounce back in a big way in this game, but I'm looking for a lot of points in this game. It's a high total and we're going over it. Give me over 51.5. We'll call this a challenge over in Lions Cardinals this weekend. My next play, an interesting one that even I don't really understand why the total was set here. Dolphins and Seahawks. Now, obviously, Tua's out, so there are all those dynamic weapons in that Miami offense for Skylar Thompson to throw to in this weird period where they are between quarterbacks. And on the other side of the ball, it sounds like Kenneth Walker might miss this game. Zach Charbonnet set to get a lot of carries in this one. And I know Geno Smith has been great through 2 weeks. I think it'll regress here. I think both offenses take a step back this week. Give me under 41.5 in Dolphins, Seahawks, also an Eastern team flying west. That never goes well. My final play.
Rapido, you're going to leave me no time.
Packers plus 2.5. I love Malik Willis. I don't trust Will Levis. Give me the Packers as dogs.
All right, Sam. Good, lucky for me, we agree on one game, so I don't even have to go into it, because for all the reasons you said, Cardinals and Lions over 51.5. I mean, come on. I mean, how are we not all in on that? I would agree with you there. The other three games for me, Vikings plus 2.5 at home against the Texans. I said I was foreshadowing in segment 3 on the show when we talked about intriguing matchups. I love home underdogs. It's as simple as that. Give me the Vikings at home plus 2.5. Buccaneers minus 6.5 at home against the Denver. The Broncos aren't good right now. They're just not. And look, maybe this thing will slowly start to improve with Nix at quarterback, but right now it is not a good offense. The Buccaneers have proven last year was not a fluke. Baker Mayfield, in him we trust. I will go with the Buccaneers minus 6.5 at home against Denver. The Chiefs in Atlanta against the Falcons. I would say buy it and get it down to 2.5 if you can. Right now it's minus 3. I love it at minus 2.5. I like it at minus 3. I think worst case you're going to push. We know this Kansas City Chiefs team plays close games. I think this one will be close, but I do think the Chiefs get a win, find a way to win on the road in Atlanta against a Falcons team that, let's face it, up until late in that game against the Eagles, that final drive, they couldn't put the ball in the end zone. They're playing against one of the best defenses in football. I don't know how much, how realistic you can be about this idea that, Atlanta's going to light it up against Patrick Mahomes and company. And this defense and Steve Spagnuolo and what they've done. It's going to wrap it up for us. It's Paige versus the Prince. Check us out on X. We're out of time, Sam. I'll talk to you over the weekend. I'll try and do better with time management. We'll see you later.